Okay, so like I just said, this is 6.1. It is not on the midterm, okay? But if it were my choice, guys, we'd be reviewing for the midterm right now, and we'd be taking it on Wednesday. And then I'd start with the final exam material on Friday. And I heard a groan, so maybe you're happy that's not the case, because that would be scary, right? But that's what I would do. But I can't just give up days, so we have to continue, okay? Okay, so 6.1 is composite functions. And so this right here is just review. F of x minus 1 just means go into that right there. And where you see an x, put in x minus 1. So you're going to go 3 times x minus 1 plus 4. You guys, this is important. If you read the word simplify, or even really if it doesn't say simplify, you have to keep going. Simplify means there are no parentheses left. So we're not done with that. You have to distribute. You get 3x minus 3 plus 4, and that gives you 3x plus 1, and you're done. The biggest mistake that people make on this problem is for some reason they put a 0 over here, and then they start solving, and they get x equals negative 1/3. But I'm not solving for x. This just says if you go here and put in x minus 1, what do you get? And that's the answer, okay? Okay, question B, you're going to go into this right here, and right there you're going to put x plus h, and right there you're going to put x plus h. So in parentheses, x plus h squared plus x, which is x plus h, minus 2. Now to simplify it, you FOIL that first guy, so you get x to the second plus 2hx plus h squared, and then it's going to be plus x plus h minus 2. Nothing can add together. There's literally nothing I can do from that point, okay? Hey guys, just to clarify, I'm not telling you not to come to school. If we don't come to school before the midterm, or if you choose not to, that's going to be very, very detrimental to all of us. So I'm not telling you not to come. I just want to be prepared in case we don't come. Will you go get a drink? Go on a walk, do something, but I keep losing you, girl, okay? And I want you to stick with me. Okay, here we go with question 1. F of g of x, okay? So the way that you, okay, first of all, let me say this. This symbolism right here and this symbolism right here are identical. It means the exact same thing. This second one right here is easier, in my opinion. So that's how we're always going to write it, okay? And the way that you say that, you say it the same for both of them, okay? Write this down. You put f of g of x. That's how you say that. F of g of x. Now, everybody look right here for 2 seconds. F of g of x versus f multiplied by g of x. They are very different problems. This means take f of x and multiply it by g of x. This means something different, and that's what we're going to do today. So just that little circle changes the problem completely, okay? So just be aware of that. Okay, look at question A. The first thing I want you to do, guys, is I want you to write it like that. That's the easier way to process through this problem, okay? And now watch how simple this is. See that g of x right there, guys? You replace it with what g of x is, which is x minus 4. So now I'm finding f of x minus 4. So you go into that f of x right there, and wherever you see an x, you put in x minus 4. So everybody go to parenthesis, x minus 4, close it, plus 1. Then you distribute the 2, 2x minus 8 plus 1. Notice how I'm carrying my equals all the way down, right? So be careful what your work looks like. This is 2x minus 7, and you're done. Okay, let's do this next one. This, let's write it like this first, guys. Look, g of f of x. Then you take that f of x and replace it with what f of x is, which is 2x plus 1. Now you go into this yellow g of x, right there where you see an x, replace it with 2x plus 1. So it's 2x plus 1 minus 4. That gives me 2x minus 3, and I'm done with the problem. Okay? When you take your midterm, please, please, please make sure you box or highlight an answer for every problem. Look right here for 2 seconds. I want to say something that's a little tough to understand. Let's see if you can follow. Look right here for a second. We look up. Part A means take g of x, put it in wherever you see an x, into f of x. Part B means take f of x, plug it in wherever you see an x, into g of x. Who says I completely understand what you just said? Raise your hand. Okay, great. Okay, look right here. F of g of 3. You guys, look at the difference. Do you see how this is a number right here? No variable. And this is a number right there. Okay. If it's a number, then I want you to go from right to left. So you reverse the order that we're used to doing everything. We usually go left to right. So you're going to switch it. Okay. Everybody write it like this. F of g of 3. So if I'm going right to left, the first thing that I see on the right is g of 3. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to write g of 3 equals. Now I'm going to go into this yellow g of x, and wherever I see an x, I'm going to put in a 3. So that's going to be 3 minus 4, which is a negative 1. Now I'm going to see that. So right now I know g of 3 is negative 1. So see this right here, f of g of 3. If we wanted to, we could cross it out and replace it with negative 1, because that's what g of 3 is. So now if you look at that, it tells you what to do. Now you find f of negative 1. So now you go into this pink equation right there, and wherever you see an x, you put in a negative 1. So it's just 2 times negative 1 plus 1. So that's negative 2 plus 1, which is a negative 1. You have only one answer, and that is the final number, negative 1. Okay, let's do question D. Go from the right to the left. So the first thing we're going to do is f of negative 2. Go into the pink equation, and wherever you see an x, put in a negative 2. So 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, plus 1 is a negative 3. So now I know f of negative 2 is negative 3. So now I'm going to find g of negative 3. Go to the yellow, put in a negative 3. You get negative 3 minus 4. That's negative 7, and you're done. Who says I am completely 100% fine? Let me see how you're feeling. Okay, yay. Okay. We're just going to jump into this, and I'll kind of explain that stuff up above, okay? So here's your f of x, here's your g of x, find this. So you guys, I'm telling you, the first thing I really want you to do on these is to write it the easy way, f of g of x. And I put an extra parenthesis in there, I think. Yeah. Looks a little complicated. There, that's better. Now, take that g of x and replace it with what g of x is, which is a square root of x. Now I'm going to go into this yellow f of x, and wherever I see an x, put in the square root of x. So it's going to be the square root of x squared. Well, the squared and the square root undo each other, so you just get an x. That's all you do. Okay? Now, they're asking me for domain. This is a little tough, so I want you to listen, okay? If you look at the answer, and you check those 3 things that restrict the domain, even root on the top, even root on the bottom, a fraction with an x on the bottom. I don't have any of those. So it looks like the domain is everything. But you have to check what comes in and what comes out. So what comes out is the answer. I already checked that. What comes in, so this is saying check what comes in and what comes out. So if you look what comes in, what did I plug in? The square root of x. Is that one of those 3 restrictions? It is. So the inside, which is the x, has to be what? Do you remember? You need to know this for the midterm. What is it? Greater than. Is it just greater than, or is it greater than or equal to? It is equal to. If you forget, watch how easy it is. If you're like, do I put the 0? Do I not put the 0? Well, you just ask yourself, is it possible for x to be a 0? Could I analyze the square root of 0? And the answer is yes. The square root of 0 is a 0. So you've got to add that equal sign in there with it. Okay? Okay, let's do the next one. Okay, so this is g of f of x. So right there, you're going to replace that with what f of x is, which is x squared. Now you go into this pink g of x, and right there where you see an x, you put in x squared. So that would be the square root of x squared, and the square root of x squared is also an x. Is it always going to be x because it just happened twice? No, so don't think that, okay? Now we have to find the domain. You just check what comes in and what comes out. So if you look at what comes out, it's just an x. None of those restrictions apply, so we're good. If you check what comes in, that would be here. I don't have any even roots. I don't have any even roots on the bottom. I have no fractions with an x on the bottom. So on this problem, the domain is everything. So same answer, but different domains because of what we put in. Okay? All right. These two problems, oh, is it? Okay, so it was on the final. That's good. I'm glad we said that. Hey guys, I held a fraction tutorial last Wednesday. I think that I uploaded that to Canvas. I think it's there. Have I uploaded it? Yeah. Okay, great. It's at the top, right? Is it the tippy top? Yeah. Okay, it's the very top thing you see. It says fraction tutorial review. So if you struggle with this problem, you may want to watch that before you take the midterm, okay? Okay, everybody come over here and write down f of g of x. If I remember correctly, you need to write pretty small right now, okay? This is a lot of writing on this problem. Okay, take that g of x and replace it with what g of x is, which is 1 over x. Now you go into this yellow f of x, and in both places, here and here, where you see an x, you replace it with 1 over x. So it's going to be 1 over x plus 3, big long fraction, 1 over x minus 2. Okay? Freeze right here for just a second. Let me say something. Just please stay right with me. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is they will turn that into a fraction bar, right, a division bar right now. Do not do that. Get the top as just one fraction, get the bottom as just one fraction, and then take that step, okay? So make that main division bar like ridiculously long, okay? Common denominator on the top is an x. Please remember this was on the final last semester, and it's not easy. Look at this fraction right here. It has the x. I'm good to go. I just write a 1. This guy right here does not have the x. So I have to multiply the bottom by x, therefore I have to multiply the top by x, so that gives me a plus 3x. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. So this guy right here, that green, already had the x, so I'm going to put a 1. This guy right here, this purple, does not have the x. So I have to multiply by x, and now I have a negative 2x. Okay, who says I am 100% fine right now? Give me feedback. Okay, yay. Now do you see how I have this fraction and fraction? It looks simpler, right? So let's write it as 1 plus 3x over x divided by 1 minus 2x over x. Now I'm going to change my division to a multiplication, and I'm going to flip it upside down. Okay. Now I just want everybody to freeze right here. I'm going to draw just a line right here because I'm going to move up to the top. So I want, whoever's writing it to follow. Don't write this down, okay? X plus 3x squared over x minus 2x squared. Final answer, wrong. Why is it wrong? Yeah, everything has an x. I can see in that thing that I just boxed, everything has an x. And so you'd have to reduce it, but I wouldn't reduce it there, guys. I'd reduce it clear down here. Look, x that's alone, x that's alone, those go away. So on top you have a 1 plus 3x. On bottom you have a 1 minus 2x, and that's your answer right there. Okay? Now, the domain is tricky, so I want you to watch. Okay? Domain. When you're finding the domain, okay, everybody just kind of chill here for 2 seconds. This is big. When you're finding domain, this is what you look at. Now, I don't want you to mark your paper up. Let me mark mine up. When you're finding domain, clearly there's no even roots, right? So that's not a thing. So the only thing we have to worry about is the denominator. But it's not just the denominator in the answer. It's the denominator throughout the entire problem. So read, look, anything that I'm highlighting is on the bottom, and they are all restrictions. Well, the one sitting down here doesn't give me a restriction. The x gives me a restriction. What is it, guys? X can't be, tell me. 0. Thank you. The 1 minus 2x, people get confused doing that in their head. So if I were you, I'd write 1 minus 2x cannot be 0. Then I'd move my 1 over. Negative 2x cannot be negative 1. And then I'd divide, x cannot be 1/2. Now remember, when you write this, this won't be on the midterm. But if it was, no matter what it's on, you have to write it like that. 2 separate statements. Done. Okay? Okay, now we're not done. That was halfway done. So maybe just draw this big division line again. And now we have to do g of f of x. So I'm going to take that f of x, replace it with what f of x is, which is x plus 3 over x minus 2. Now I'm going to go into this pink g of x, and right here, wherever I see an x, I'm going to replace it with x plus 3 over x minus 2. So everybody watch. 1, big division bar, because that guy's the main division bar. And then on bottom, where I see the x, I replace it with x plus 3 over x minus 2. Well, this problem's much easier, because I don't have complicated separate fractions on the top, nor on the bottom, so I'm ready to write it as a division. So this is going to be 1 divided by x plus 3 over x minus 2. Make the 1 a fraction, change the division to a multiplication, flip the second guy upside down. So my final answer is x minus 2 over x plus 3, and I'm done. As far as the domain goes, look at the denominators throughout the entire problem. You have 2 restrictions. One of them is x cannot be, tell me guys. 2, thank you. The other one is x cannot be, tell me everybody, negative 3. That's it. Okay, who understood that problem right there? Okay, wonderful. You guys are awesome. Okay, example, let's see how much we have. We have quite a bit, but it'll be okay. Okay, here's example 4. Come over to the side and write f of g of x. And it's saying show that they're both equal to x. Okay, take this g of x, replace it with what g of x is, which is x over 2 plus 3. Now you go into this green f of x, and wherever you see an x, you put in x over 2 plus 3. So everybody go 2 parenthesis, x over 2 plus 3. Is that the whole thing? Like, am I done writing that line? What's missing? The minus 6, and that's not uncommon, okay? Now I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to freeze right here, okay? Put a little asterisk up above this problem, and I want you to write down the words, take 1 step at a time. If you don't take 1 step at a time, then I don't know that you know how to cancel correctly, Okay, here's my question right here. Can I cancel this 2 with this 2 right now? And then I'd end up with x plus 3 minus 6. Is that acceptable, yes or no? No. Because if I do that, then what about this 3 was supposed to be multiplied by the 2 as well, and I just got rid of it. So when I distribute it, I get x multiplied by x over 2. On that piece, the 2's do cancel, and I get an x. But I still have to multiply the 2 by the 3. So 2 times 3 is 6 minus 6. And now I have 6 minus 6 goes away, and I get an x. I was expecting it to be an x, you guys, because in the directions, it said show that they're both x. Okay, so that's what I was expecting. Okay, draw a line, and then do g of f of x. Take that f of x and replace it with what f of x is. Then go into this yellow g of x, and where you see that single x, replace it with 2x minus 6. So everybody go 2x minus 6 over 2 plus 3. Can I do this? Cancel this 2 with this 2, and I get x minus 6 plus 3. Yes or no? No. What is it if I do that? It's rude. Who is it rude to? The 6. So if you look here, how many people are in that little piece of it right there? 3 people. What number goes into all of those people? 2. So I can reduce, but I have to include everybody. So 2 goes into 2 one time, so that's a 1x. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 2 one time, but a 1 on the bottom doesn't do anything, so I don't need to write it. And then it's plus 3, negative 3 plus 3 is an x, and I'm done. Okay, that's it. Okay, question 5. This one's a little tricky. Is this one highlighted?
No.
Do I only have one highlighted, and we already did that?
7 and 8 are both highlighted.
Okay, 7 and 8 are both highlighted. Okay, here's number 5. Number 5. I have seen this recently. That's why I just asked you if it was on there. Okay, this is a little tough, a little bit tough. So watch. Okay, this function c of f takes a Fahrenheit. So you put it here, put in the Fahrenheit here, and out comes a Celsius. The other guy, you put in a Celsius, and out comes a Kelvins. So the first one takes a Fahrenheit and turns it into Celsius. The second one takes a Celsius and turns it into Kelvins. Okay? Okay, I want everybody to write down, I want you to write C of F equals 5/9 times F minus 32. Just write that down. Now I want you to listen to this for a second, guys. Look. If this said C of X, would that make sense, that equation? It wouldn't make sense because the of X means that the variable over there is going to be an X, and it's not an X, it's an F. So this would always have to be C of F because on the other side, I have an F. Who says I understand that? Okay, so I can see that it's an F. I can look over there and go, yeah, I can see that that's an F. So if I didn't write it in function notation, it would be okay for a minute. So everybody just erase the of F, okay? Look at the next guy. Okay, so everybody go K of C is equal to C plus 273. If it said K of X, it wouldn't make sense. It has to be K of C because the variable over there is a C. Well, I can see that it's the letter C. So if I wanted to, for a minute, I could get rid of it. And I'm just going to write it like that. It's the same equation. So on this guy, look, guys, you put in an F and out pops a C. On this guy, it takes Celsius and converts it in Kelvins. So what they want now is they want something that converts Fahrenheit into Kelvin. So on the right, it's going to be your Fahrenheit. You're going to stick that number in, and out comes a Kelvin. So that's what it has to look like. That I just said might be the toughest part of the whole problem. The Fahrenheit has to be on the right. You stick in the Fahrenheit and it writes it as a Kelvin. Who says, I understand what you're saying to me? Okay, the rest is easy. It's just substitution. Look, I want K equals. Well, this guy is K equals. Only I don't want that to be a C. I need it to be an F. But I know that C is this. So I'm just going to substitute that in for that. Okay, so everybody write K equals C, which is 5/9 times F minus 32 plus 273. That's the answer. You don't have to simplify it, but Weber State's not going to like that. Does anybody know what they're not going to like? It's just like this tiny little change. Look how they gave them to us, guys. They gave them to us as K of C and C of F. So this guy right here should be written as K of what, everybody? K of, what's the variable on the other side? K of F. Exactly right. Okay, so that's the answer to part A. Look at part B. Determine 80 degrees Fahrenheit in kelvins. So now they just want you to use what you just found. So you're just going to go K of 80 is equal to 5/9 times 80 minus 32 plus 273. Let's just put it in our calculator just how we see it. So everybody go 5 divided by 9 parenthesis, 80 minus 32, close it, plus 273, hit enter. To the nearest whole is 300 Kelvin. And I don't think there's supposed to be an S at the end. It's just another way of measuring temperature. It's called Kelvin. Okay, question 6. What is the difference? Draw an arrow to this guy, draw an arrow to that guy. The guy on the right, what do you do to the guy on the right, everybody? Tell me. You multiply, yep. This means f of x multiplied by g of x. Write down the word multiply. This guy means plug. Plug what? Plug g of x? Or plug in g of x? Or plug in f of x? Which one do you put in? G of x. So plug g of x in for x into which equation, everybody? F of x. Beautiful. If you knew that, if you knew how to say that, awesome. Okay? You just have to for sure understand the difference. Okay, this one's super easy. Do you see how this is a number? You go from the right to the left. Okay, so everybody write down g of -3 equals. Draw an arrow to that -3. You tell me, is that -3 an x value or a y value, everybody? X. So everybody write down the word x value. This is where I'm looking right here. So if x is a -3, what's g of x? It's that bottom one, 0. So now take that g of -3 right there, lightly cross it out, and put in a 0, because that's what it is. Now you have to find f of 0. Take your pencil and again draw an arrow to the 0 and remind yourself that is an x value. So now I'm not looking at the same column. Now I'm looking over there. So if x is a 0, what's your f of x? It's right there. It's a 6. That's your final answer. Okay, let's do another one. First thing I want you to do is to find f of -4. Go right here where x is a -4. What do you get for f? It's right there, -2. Now I'm going to find, what do I find now? You guys tell me. I want to see if you understand. Thank you. G of -2. Do I keep looking at that same column? No. I look at the column where x is a -2. What's your g of x? -1. So that -1, the final number, is my final answer. You guys do C by yourself. The double G's right there, the G of might make you feel confused. It's just go with it. It's not weird or scary. Hey guys, should you start working on those review packets I gave you? What do you have to do before you do that? Please do it in the right order. That workbook for 2 hours. Okay? Okay, G of -2. Here's your -2. What's G of -2? -1. So replace it. Now I'm looking right here in the yellow. If x is a -1, what's your G of x? -2. Done. Who says I got that? Let's see. Yay. Okay, last one. Here's your f of x, and here's your g of x. Here is f of g of x. Find the domain of f of g of x. Okay? So people will read this, and they will do this. They'll go like this, guys. Look. Take the bottom. Write this with me. 5x plus 12 cannot be equal to 0. That's correct. 5x cannot be equal to -12. Therefore, x cannot be equal to a -12/5. That is correct, but it's not complete. Why is it not complete? What comes in and out. You're exactly right. So all I looked at was out. I have to look at in. Look right here. For g of f of g of x, what goes in? G of x or f of x? Everybody tell me. What goes in? G of x. Okay, so everybody write this down. F of g of x. Draw an arrow and say g of x goes in. Goes into what? It goes into f of x, right? So I have to look at the g of x, and that has to be a restriction as well. So a second restriction is x cannot be equal to -2. It was on the final last semester. You have to check what goes in and out. That one was highlighted, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we're done. Okay, we still have 25 minutes. So what we're going to do right now is you're going to get your quizzes back, and we are going to start doing corrections like crazy, okay? So